Good day. Thank you for tuning into this primary election candidate forum for Senate Legislative District 22. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with the legislature. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women of voting age. I'm Karen Tweet from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum today. The candidates for Senate Legislative District 22 are Sam Hunt, Spencer Baldwin, and Eric Lee. For this forum, the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The person first asked the question will have 2 minutes to respond, followed by 1 minute from the other candidates. There will be 1 minute for closing statements at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates, beginning with Sam Hunt. Sam? 2 minutes.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you to the League and to the Thurston County TV to hold this forum today. I've been serving in the House for the last 16 years. It's been my pleasure to be a representative representing the 22nd District. With Karen Fraser moving on to run for Lieutenant Governor, I decided to run for the state Senate, and we're getting that campaign underway. So in the House, I served as the chair of the State Government Committee, also served on the Appropriations Committee, which writes the state budget, and on the Education Committee, which deals with all issues related to K-12 education. I grew up in Yakima on a farm, went to Washington State University, graduated there, and started out as a teacher in Pasco. After that, I did move to Olympia. I was here for a couple years and then got the honor of getting asked to work for the United States Senate Appropriations Committee in Washington, D.C. So my wife and I and my daughter moved to D.C. and spent 5 years there. We welcomed our son into our family in D.C., came back here in 1980 and have been Olympia residents since then. I served on the North Thurston School Board for 8 years, and as I said, I belong to the I belong to the Olympia Kiwanis, and I've been active in numerous committees and activities in the Olympia area, and it would be my pleasure and honor to serve you as your next state senator from the 22nd District. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Spencer?
I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for holding this candidate forum, TCTV for televising the debate, as well as the other candidates for participating in this forum. My name is Spencer Baldwin. I grew up in Olympia. I attended Tumwater School District, took advantage of the Running Start program, and attended University of Washington. I'm a former antitrust attorney where I fought against monopolization and anti-competitive behavior by companies, and I also fought against mergers and acquisitions. I'm a former contract lobbyist, and I currently work in criminal defense. I'm running for the state Senate because I'm tired of unambitious plans. I'm running because too many people throughout our state believe that they do not have a voice. I'm running because members of my generation can't start families or their careers because the ladders of economic mobility are broken or inaccessible. I'm running because we have a constitutional duty to provide a basic education to our children. We must work towards solving the escalating problems we face. But in an age of automation, we need to comprehensively focus on economic mobility, on real mobility, and on institutional reform to get Washington State back on track. We need a functioning education system, a living wage, eventually universal basic income, affordable housing, accessible childcare, paid family and sick leave, and to provide food security. About a year ago, I joined the Hyperloop movement to move our society toward green transportation because I also believe that real mobility provides economic mobility, and it will enable us to address stagnant upward mobility. But I also believe that we need to do more to combat the growing and corrosive influence of money in politics. That is why I will work to increase transparency and why I will not accept donations from lobbyists, political action committees, or corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Eric?
Yeah, my name is Eric Lee. I was born into the housing projects of South Seattle and raised on North Beacon Hill. I'm a fifth-generation Washingtonian. I have been with my wife, Deborah, for 32 years. We are raising our children in Fremont, in Seattle, in the Fremont district. Great place, except it was becoming very crowded. And my wife had a job opportunity down here with the Nisqually tribe. So we moved down here, raised our children through the Olympia school districts. They went on to South Puget Sound Community College, and we loved it. My son recently said, when I am ready to start a family, I'm going to do it in Thurston County. So Thurston County is a great place to raise children. Myself, I didn't have a great childhood in that I grew up, like I said, we were in the projects, lost our home, we were homeless, moved from charity house to charity house, and my siblings went to 5, 6 different elementary schools. Fortunately, by the time I was entering school, we had settled down in a house in North Beacon Hill right across from the elementary school where I would go, and that allowed me to go on, get an education, and be the only and first person in my family to get a college education. I got a BA in political science, University of Washington, and a master's in public administration from the Evans School at the UW. On this election cycle, I was totally sworn off the election. I was not going to participate. I was not going to watch, and didn't want to see this terrible mess until my daughter, my 21-year-old daughter, came to me and said, "Dad, the candidate you've told me about my entire life is running right now. Would you please pay attention?" And I started paying attention, and I was motivated. I ended up as a Sanders delegate, and thank you. And through that, I'm a candidate here today asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So now we'll turn to the questions. Spencer, you'll get the first question for 2 minutes, and then Eric and Sam will respond with 1 minute, and then we'll just kind of rotate that process. So, Spencer, what do you consider to be balanced and fair taxation for Washington state citizens?
Well, I believe that we need to move away from the regressive tax structure that we have in place currently, because a regressive tax structure breeds a regressive government. And one of the things that you see is that government is trying to move towards fee-based systems. But those fee-based systems end up hurting the very people who they're trying to benefit. It hurts the poor, and it hurts, for example, in the criminal justice system, it hurts the accused. We have offender-funded justice, which essentially means that we are having criminals and alleged offenders funding one of the branches of our government. And that doesn't work. It is a bad incentive for basically every step of the way. It incentivizes police officers to over-arrest because they have to pay the arresting officer's salary. And that's absolutely ridiculous. It's a conflict of interest. And it feeds into this system that we've created where we have to continually ask ourselves, how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it with a fairer tax plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Eric?
So am I addressing the camera here?
Camera, yes.
Oh, there we go. No, I agree with what you said. We need to move to a progressive tax system. I like to see a income tax that we shift over to, maybe initially with higher income earners, and brakes on the sales tax. The sales tax ends up eating a huge percentage of poor working families' income, whereas higher earners, it's a very small percentage. Just to look for some equity in the tax structure, and at some point move to an entire income tax that is quite progressive.
Thank you, Eric. Sam?
Thank you. Well, our tax system in the state of Washington is broken. It is outdated, based on a sales tax that hits the lower income people with a higher percentage of their income going to taxes. I support a capital gains tax. I support comprehensive tax reform, including elimination of tax exemptions that are not working. And We in the House have tried several times to repeal some of these exemptions. Unfortunately, the ruling party in the Senate has opposed that. Too many of them have taken the Grover Norquist pledge for not raising any taxes, which unfortunately includes eliminating tax exemptions that do not work. And that's the first step with a capital gains tax to go for comprehensive tax reform.
Thank you, Sam. Eric, so second question. The next session of the legislature has the difficult job of fully funding basic education. How would you propose to fully fund the state's K-12 basic education system? For 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's huge. Without increased revenue, it's an impossibility. The legislature's already set aside money to ensure partial satisfaction of meeting that constitutional obligation, but we need to raise revenues, as Sam said, with sunsetting some of these tax incentives that we had that aren't paying out, that we hope to take the legislature and remove that, or I'm sorry, take the Senate back and remove that opposition to increasing revenues. And we need to move quickly to move to a income tax straight away as part of the plan to fully fund basic education. And it's not just classroom size, but also paying for facilities. There's more rooms that need to be built, and also fully funding the food lunch program, the free lunch program, and the free breakfast program, because sometimes that's the only meal that the children get. It's kind of hard to learn. You could have a beautiful classroom, it could be a small classroom size, but if you don't have food in your stomach, it's hard to pay attention to the lesson plan.
Thank you, Eric. Sam?
We face a problem like the state has not faced in its lifetime. A decision by the Supreme Court, I think a rightful decision, that says we are not fully funding the legislation that we have enacted for K-12 education. It's going to be extremely difficult. I hopefully jokingly say that we may be around in October next year still trying to deal with this, because we've talked about 900 million or 800 million in taxes or revenue. This is a multi-billion-dollar problem, anywhere from $3 billion to $5 billion. And unfortunately, we're not going to get an income tax anytime soon. So we have to look at things like the capital gains tax, how we deal with property tax and other issues, including taking the pressure off of the local levies. Local levies are providing a lot of the basic education, and they shouldn't be.
Thank you, Sam. Spencer?
Last month, I had the opportunity to attend a school board meeting in Tumwater, and I listened after teacher after teacher after teacher talked about how we are not fulfilling their needs. And I came to the realization that we can't fully fund education without fully funding our educators. We need to be more ambitious with what we're doing with education, because it is the paramount duty of the state. We need to define basic education to include a K through 16 education, because the way that the world has gone, we are not working in a diploma world, we're working in a bachelor's degree world. And we need to diversify our revenue stream if we want to be able to pay for education, which means that we need to have an income tax, have other forms of taxation that pay for our schools, including paying on consolidation of the housing industry. And we also need to change our priorities away from things like providing sports and providing activities that are germane to education.
Thank you, Spencer. So our next question, Sam, what solutions would you offer to combat lack of civility in the legislature?
Well, thank you for that question. It was my honor last year to receive with Representative Hans Zeiger from Puyallup the Gabby Giffords Award for civility in state legislatures. I have been working with the National Institute for Civil Discourse for the last 2 years traveling around the country working with legislators and legislative leaders on ways to increase and improve civility, because it's very important. And fortunately, I think our legislature is very civil compared to lots of others. We haven't had fist fights break out on the floor like I saw in one of the other states in the last couple years. But it's really important that we not only work for civility, but we work for cooperation, do more work across the aisles, because, you know, I think all the legislators are in Olympia because they want to accomplish something. We have different ways and different things we want to go about accomplishing that, and it's important that we deal with it in a civil manner and sit down and talk about that as to how we can do it. And you know, last year, one of the training sessions I went to, I volunteered for Minnesota in December. And I went into Minnesota, 28 degrees below zero, and worked with the members of the Minnesota House and Senate on a full day seminar to try to discuss how we can get along better and how we can reach solutions. And that's what we need to keep in mind, is how we deal with problems in a humane and civil manner, remembering that we are all members of a body and we all really want to see things work out better and do it in a civil manner.
Thank you, Sam. Spencer?
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Sam. We definitely need to do more to increase our civility within the legislative body, because that's where we're debating the very things that are plaguing or we're faced with, the very problems that we're faced with. So one of the ways that we could do this is by increasing citizen engagement and also increasing transparency. By increasing transparency, everybody knows that they are being watched, which means that they have to behave, that they can't just grandstand. They have to actually engage with one another. And that's what bringing other citizens into the process is going to do. We need spirited debates, but we also need people to be engaging in the process, and we can't shut that down with uncivil discourse.
Thank you, Spencer. Eric?
Well, as Sam pointed out, there isn't so much a lack of civility as in other legislative bodies in the other states. But as I was saying about a senator out of, I believe, Auburn, who had threatened a staffer or another legislator with a handgun and was reprimanded or sanctioned for that, didn't seem to go far enough, in my opinion. But I think that the civility just doesn't take place when legislators are dealing with each other directly, but also dealing with central staff, dealing with staff members, dealing with the representatives from the agency in which they oversee. And when people are sitting in the office where the cameras aren't rolling, that's where the civility really needs to be embodied and not just be held back because they know they're under scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So the next question come to you, Spencer. For 2 minutes. Each of you has done one question first. So, so this is a timely question. What role do you think the legislature should play, if any, in the regulation of oil and coal transport across our state? For 2 minutes.
Well, transportation is one of my biggest issues. I believe that we need to start moving toward a 21st century infrastructure. We need to move away from fossil fuels, and we need to cut our reliance on fossil fuels. There was a crash down in Oregon just yesterday, and if this sort of thing were to happen in Seattle, it would be a calamity. So we need to start moving towards technologies like Skytrain, Hyperloop, self-driving cars, drones, electric bicycles. These are the sorts of things that we need to integrate into our transportation infrastructure to create an integrated transit structure. We need people who are able to go downstairs, get on one thing, and seamlessly transition between one method of transportation to another. That is what I believe is going to be the future of what we do with transportation. All of these are currently available. We just need to start working towards building them and integrating them into our system. And I believe that certain methods of transportation actually will help us to combat the lack of affordable housing in this state, because some of these technologies can actually be integrated into our buildings. So by leveraging the transportation infrastructure, we can actually lower the cost of housing by increasing cooperation among most of the individuals in our society. We should, as the government, be focusing on how we can increase the collaboration of individuals who want to escape the private housing market, because it's not working, and it's just a drain on our economy, and basically everybody's throwing their money out the window. We need to have something different. We can't continue to throw $890 billion a year, $1 million, sorry, out the window just because we're stuck in traffic. It's unsustainable, it's not friendly to the environment, and we need to do better.
Thank you, Spencer. Eric?
Yeah, so the question again was regarding the transport of
The regulation of oil and coal transport across the state.
Right, and the state should take a heavy role on those. The transport of oil and coal, as we've seen throughout the country with spills in the waterways, we can't afford to have this level of activity going on through our state, and also putting in the installations that threaten not only the population, but the natural environment, and especially Puget Sound, as we're looking to, thank you. So we're looking to increase economic activity and put in port installations that transport these materials over to Asia and other parts of the world. It looks like it would be great for those communities, but it would only take one spill that could totally wipe out the fisheries and endanger our marine mammals in Puget Sound, and completely wipe out our endangered species in some areas.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, thank you. You know, the recent spill derailment, excuse me, in the Columbia Gorge is a real warning sign. Fortunately, it appears only one of those cars loaded with Bakken oil erupted into flames, but there were 12 or 13 cars that derailed. And the Columbia River is a great resource. The chair of the Yakima Nation voices very strong concerns about the impact that would have on our fisheries and our natural resources in the Columbia Gorge and elsewhere. I'd also like to remind people that many of those trains go through Spokane, right through the middle of Spokane, as well as others. What can we do? We can limit the number of terminals. We should not be building more terminals to export coal and oil to China so they can burn that and endanger our state and then send the fumes and the mercury back across the ocean to us.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Our next question goes to you first, Sam. Would you support additional efforts to address mental health care in the state? If so, what form might that take? If not, why not?
Mental health is a huge problem. We put additional money into the budget this year to try to deal more with mental health. We have seen severe problems at Western State Hospital right up the road here. We have relied way too much on warehousing in some instances. In others, with the federal government over the years de-emphasizing care and treatment of mental health, we have put too many people with mental health problems either in jails or on the street. And we need a comprehensive approach. And that means, of course, more money. And it's the same thing we face with K-12 education, is we have a pressing problem here. We need to step up and provide money to not only upgrade the facilities, but to increase treatment and counseling and care for those with mental illnesses.
Thank you, Sam. Spencer?
Well, this is a very important issue for me, because as somebody who has actually suffered from depression and anxiety, I believe that there's a lot of things that we could be doing that would enable people to get care. And one of those things is increasing the resources available to people who are working class individuals, because it's very difficult to get into counseling or anything like that when you have a job. And we need to increase the accessibility of mental health services, but we also need to increase the resources for people who are learning how to take care of other people. We need to encourage more people to go into these fields, because these are the fields that are going to be taking care of the people who are supposed to be working.
Thank you, Eric. Spencer. Eric?
Yeah, first, we need to decriminalize mental health illness. I have a brother who was a genius in high school, was a Naval Sea Cadet. He was the editor of the school paper. He won a national scholarship and went to DC for a while, and mental illness set in. He was living on the streets a few years ago, our family trying to help him put a network of support in place for him. But the thing is, there's this criminalization of people with mental health. The police are very apt to arrest them. I worked for Jail Health Services for King County Department of Public Health and went into the psych ward in the King County Jail. Overcrowded, people lined up against the wall for the entire day because they didn't have the resources to put them in safe facilities. We need to fund this fully. This is a growing problem. It was exacerbated by the purge of the mental health hospitals in the 80s. We need to get back to community taking care of our mentally ill.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question, but 1 minute each. And I'm going to start with you, Eric. Several efforts to pass a bill authorizing automatic voter registration for 16-year-olds who receive their driver's license have failed to pass the legislature in the last few years. Would you favor such a bill? And if not, why not?
I would definitely favor a bill for automatic voter registration. My only concern is one thing that we've been seeing in the recent election is that if there's a declaration made for one party or another, the possibility of them being shut out of voting if there's a Democratic or Republican candidate and they've declared themselves independent, that if they're allowed to be automatically registered as no party preference, that would allow them not to infiltrate, but actually engage a, thank you, to engage with a candidate. We've just seen that in California with a lot of people wanting to vote for Bernie Sanders, but they were registered as independents, and the big push to get them either registered as Democrats or registered as no party preference, which are allowed to vote in the Democratic primary. As long as we're not channeling these automatically registered students into one party or another, unless they choose so, I would fully support it, and I think it's essential for expanding democracy and participation.
Thank you, Eric. Sam?
Well, thank you. As the sponsor of automatic voter registration, we have two issues here. One is automatic voter registration. The other is pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds when they get their driver's license or their state ID card. Very simple. It's the most commonly used form of voter registration we have in the state. There are technological, try to say that 3 times, ways that age group can be excluded. They will not be moved to the database for voters until they reach 18. It gives them a great opportunity, and with a 5 or 6 year driver's license, if we don't catch those young people the first time, they miss 5 years of having the opportunity to sign up. So I think it's a great way. I've sponsored that bill, and we've passed it in the House now 4 years in a row, and hopefully we'll get the Senate turned around.
Spencer?
I would definitely support those kinds of measures. I have in the past fought against restrictive voting bills such as the voter ID law that came up in the 2014 legislative session, because I believe that it does not do us any good. It just harms the civic engagement, which we need to increase. And I also believe that we need to ban the box to enable people who have been convicted to continue to participate in our society. We can't have them be on the outside. We need to have them feel like they can participate as well. And I also believe that one of the ways that we can increase civic engagement among young people is actually allowing them to vote. I think that we should allow 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to vote. If they can pay taxes, they should be able to vote.
Thank you, Spencer. We're now moving to our 1 minute closing statements. Let's start with you, Eric.
Okay, I'm going to refer to some notes I just jotted down. So I'm not here just to ask for your vote. I'm asking you to lend me your vote, that I could represent you in the legislature, and I would be asking also that not just to lend me your vote, but I'm pleading with you to join us. It's a movement. There are a lot of people who've been left out of the political process, who have pulled themselves out of the political process because there haven't been people in there that actually have represented them. We are riding a wave right now that's been called the Sanders tsunami. And it's now that we're shifting away from the presidential focus, we're looking at local elections. And we plan to move forward together. So we're not just asking to hold the line, but we're actually talking about being true progressives and move an agenda forward. So again, lend me your vote, and I will do my best to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Sam?
Well, thank you. You know, I think you've seen today that we have 3 progressive, I might even say liberal candidates running for the 22nd District Senate seat, which I think is very healthy. We face, as I've said, some very tough, difficult decisions. One thing I would do initially would be to raise teacher salaries to a basic of at least $50,000 a year. That is the foundation for our education system, and with quality teachers, we will have a better system. I would ask for your vote. I think my record of 16 years in the House has proved that I am able to get things done for this district and for the state, and I would like to continue that. I was the sponsor of the vote by mail legislation that we've implemented in this state, and hopefully will be the sponsor of automatic voter registration. We get that in place too. So I ask for your vote. Please remember Sam Hunt on primary day and at general election. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Spencer?
We need to comprehensively rethink how our government serves Washingtonians. I'm running because I believe that we need to work to ensure that our citizens have faith in our political institutions and in our capacity to solve the biggest problems facing our society. We can no longer accept the status quo from our elected officials. We need to move forward. We need to rethink what society we want to live in. Do we want to live in a society where teachers work 3 jobs, where children and family remain homeless, where mental illness goes unaddressed, where sickness goes untreated, where the justice system is a vortex, where internet lags behind, and where our highways are parking lots? Or do we want to live in a society where we work towards comprehensive solutions? Economic mobility, real mobility, and political reform will be the focus of my campaign because I believe that the relationship between them cannot be ignored. To solve the problems we face, we need ideas. That is why I'm running to be your senator.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our forum. Thank you, candidates. And thank you, TCTV and the League of Women Voters, for making this forum possible. Viewers out there, we hope that when you vote in the primary and in the November 3rd general election, this information will help you make an informed decision about your candidates. Goodbye. Have a good day.